Hey everybody, so today I am here to give you guys a baby Q&A. I wanted to do something like this when I got really close to the end, just to kind of, I don't know, talk about anything that you guys still weren't sure of. You guys asked a lot of good questions on Instagram, so I tried to answer kind of the more repetitive ones over on Instagram, and you can find those under my pregnancy highlights if you're looking for that kind of information. And I tried to stick to ones that I haven't addressed or couldn't be answered by one of my updates on here, because I know a lot of you watch my updates and stuff, so I don't want it to get repetitive over here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first question is, how are you feeling related to the stress of a newborn and two littles this time around? Now, if both of my kids were at home and I was having a newborn again, I feel like I'd be pretty okay. Not to say that it's not going to be hard and it's easy and it's a piece of cake. It's just that I've done that scenario before, so I would feel a little bit more comfortable with it. However, like I've said a million times, the girls are starting preschool literally the week after I give birth. So for that reason, I am a little nervous on kind of managing that whole thing and also having a newborn. Now, Mark is going to be home with us for 2.5 weeks, so that's really nice, but he is going to go back to work at some point, and it'll be myself who has to get all three girls ready to go every single morning to preschool. And I'm not worried or anything like that. Like, I know we all end up handling it. It is what it is. We make it work. But to say I'm intimidated would be putting it lightly, because I feel like getting Remy ready, even though she wasn't going to preschool last year, you know, just getting her ready with us in the morning to stick her in the car and just drop her sister off, that felt like a lot to get both kids up, ready, out the door to drop just one of them off at preschool. So now I'm going to have to get another one ready, which, I mean, she's not going to require a whole lot, but when babies want something, they want something, and they want it that minute. So they're kind of more unpredictable. But like I said, I know we'll make it work, and I'm just going to try to be as forgiving to myself as possible. So the next question is, how do you transition baby from sleeping in a DockATot to an actual bed? And I would say that no matter what the transition is from, our approach is typically the same. We always start with nap time, no matter what the transition is. If it's sleeping without a binky, if it's going from crib to floor bed, if it's going from, you know, a bassinet kind of situation to the pack and play, or, you know, whatever it might be. We always start with the nap time, because I feel like that's easier. If it's not working out during nap time and you lose that kind of sleep, it sucks, but it's not sleeping at night. So that's why we like to start at nap time, kind of like a gentle introduction and easier transition for everybody, in my opinion. So that does take a little bit. I would say maybe like 4 to 5 days before they really get a hang of it. And I don't really do anything special, no matter what it is, whether it's been the binky, going to a floor bed, going from bassinet to like some kind of just solid mattress. Each time I've just done it, you know, like I just 100% in, this is what we're doing. So when baby is fussy or something like that, you know, like, you know, as a mom what your baby might need to console them, and, you know, that's kind of baby, mom, parent, individual situation. I wouldn't say we do the cry it out method. I wouldn't say we don't do the cry it out method. We're kind of somewhere in between. We kind of do this thing where if they cry for a few minutes, we go in, we console them, and then if they do that more than 3 times, then we'll just call it a loss for the day, and then we'll pick it up the next day. But normally there's only 2 or 3 days of that before they start to get it. I will say, very first transitioning, like at nap time, there is maybe like 4 to 5 days it takes to get there. Honestly, most times my kids don't cry past the first time of me going in and consoling them. After that, they're normally okay. I think the hardest situation was the binky situation. Honestly, transitioning from different sleeping areas hasn't been too tough for my kids, fortunately. I think that also has to do with the fact that my kids are just generally good sleepers. we've been really lucky in that way. They stay asleep, they want to go to sleep, they're really sound, heavy sleepers, you know, so we're kind of fortunate in that way. But I mean, they both also did go through their own things of not loving what we were doing. And we just do that during nap time. And once nap time is well established into the new setting of whatever we're doing, then we start doing it at night. And again, it's like kind of starting over a little bit, because we do have a few nights of the crying and adjusting and stuff like that, but then they're good to go. And honestly, now at 4.5 and 3 years old, they're doing great. I know everybody has a different approach with sleeping. I know it can kind of be a hot topic, but that's just personally what we do. The next question is, how did you introduce your oldest to your current youngest? Oh, this is something that I've never talked about before. And honestly, I try to push it out of my mind because I do not like to think about it. But actually, the first time they met, I didn't even get to really experience that. And that is because they were taking me from recovery. I have had C-sections, so I am on my own bed. They take that to the private room that we're staying in, and baby has to be in a bassinet that also rolls. So I can't hold baby, at least in the hospital that I had delivered at. I'm not allowed to hold baby while I'm moving, so she has to always be in a bassinet. So for that reason, Mark's pushing the bassinet, I'm being wheeled in a bed, and on the way to our room is the waiting room where Sophie was. And I don't know how it happened. I didn't ask specifics. Like I said, I really just try to keep it out of my mind because it irritates me, it upsets me, it does a lot of different things. But it is what it is, and I can't change it now. So that's why I try to push it on my head. But for whatever reason, they stopped there with the bassinet, and Sophie got to like look at her sister and stuff like that. But they wheeled me right past and right down to my private room. And I mean, it didn't last long. He was right behind us. But at the same time, that is the official first time that they ever met each other, and I didn't get to be a part of it. So we don't consider that the first time that they officially met. That is when we got into our room and settled. That's when we had Sophie come in. I was holding Remy, and Sophie at the time was only 1.5 years. So I think that does also change things as well. She was pretty unpredictable at 1.5 years. We didn't want her to like accidentally kick her sister or something. So for that reason, you know, Mark was kind of more holding Sophie and I was holding Remy, and we did allow her to touch her, and we had worked with her beforehand on how to be soft and gentle to baby, stuff like that. And that really helped too. But we did also still have to try and restrain her from doing stuff sometimes because they just don't know their own force at that age. But this time is going to be a little bit different because even doing that, I don't remember a lot of it because of my adverse reactions from my C-section anesthesia and just all the drugs, honestly, they have you on at that point. It's really hazy to me. So for that reason, we're not having the girls come until later in the afternoon once I'm feeling better, quite possibly even the next day, like the next morning. It just really depends on how I'm doing because I want to be well aware of this. You know, this is our last baby, this is them meeting their probably last sibling, stuff like that. So for that reason, I really want to be present. I really want to be aware. I don't want to be worried about barfing or falling asleep while it's happening or something like that. So for that reason, we're going to be waiting, and I would encourage you to do that. You know, how you feel is also important, and there's no rush to introduce your kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like the second they come out, they need to meet to be the best of siblings. Trust me, that's not where it starts. So, you know, I would do whatever you're comfortable with, but that's how we're going to do it this time. The next question is pregnancy after miscarriage, feeling terrified. Any advice? Also, when to share with family? I would share with family whenever you're comfortable. You know, honestly, that's different for everybody. Some people still like keeping it to themselves until a certain point. I know after Sophie, we kept it to ourselves until I was like 15 weeks pregnant because of our very first miscarriage. But then with Remy, we announced a little bit sooner than that. Not a lot, a little bit sooner. And this time around, it was kind of from the beginning, and that's just all for different reasons. We felt different each and every time, and there's no right or wrong way to do things when you're going through this. So I would say whatever makes you comfortable. Me personally, I feel like my my perspective changed on it a bit. At first, I, like with Sophie, not announcing until 15 weeks, it was because I didn't want, if something bad happened, I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And that's just how I felt at that time. I'm not saying that's right, I'm not saying that's wrong. And then with Remy, I was kind of like, didn't feel the need to wait as long. And then with this time around, I felt like if something did happen, I did want people to know, because I wanted them to know, and you know, if I heard from them, I heard from them, but like, I don't know, it just, like I said, my perspective started changing, and I just kind of felt like, you know, if we are going through something, I don't want to hide that either. And as far as advice for pregnancy after loss, first of all, congratulations. I hope your pregnancy continues to go healthy. I would say to give yourself room. Give yourself room to feel all the things that you need to feel. Like I said, there's no right or wrong way to navigate through this. You know, you're probably still grieving at a certain level from everything that you've been through. I think a lot of people think that you can't be grateful and grieving at the same time. Like, it's like, oh, well, you got pregnant now, so, you know, you're fine. I don't want to hear about that anymore. You know, why are you still upset over something when you got it? You know, I don't like that mindset. I think it's really ignorant, and I think it's kind of nothing but oppressive to people. I mean, we're human, we feel things. That's kind of the point here. So for that reason, I would just give yourself space, because there's going to be days that you don't feel 100% amazing about things, and that's okay because of everything you've been through. But then there's going to be days where you're really excited, but let yourself feel that too. You know, I felt like a lot of the time I was trying to make myself not feel too upset or too, you know, distraught or anything, but also at the same time I was like not letting myself be excited. And it was like, I'm not doing myself favors either way. You know, like, none of this is easier when you're guilt tripping yourself about how you feel. So if you feel sad, if you feel upset, if you feel worried, if you feel excited and happy and hopeful, let yourself feel all the things, because honestly, pregnancy is day by day. We never know what's going to happen. And right now, you're pregnant. And that's what I would tell myself a lot of the time when I would get worried and anxious and stuff. I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, but right now I'm pregnant, and I know that. And I just had to really focus on the now. And it is super hard. It's super hard when you're remembering and getting flashbacks of everything that you've been through. But if you can try to focus on the now, I think it eventually becomes a mindset that's just a little bit more second nature and easier for you to just kind of be on. I'm not going to say it's ever going to go away. You know, I'm almost 36 weeks pregnant, and I still have things that I'm anxious about and I worry about. And trust me, I still have days where it's still rough, even after all this time, even though I'm so close. You know what I'm saying? So just, you know, be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself, you know, talk to people if you want to, if that would be helpful to you. I know it's hard, so just kind of hang in there, and I hope the things that I said were helpful. And the next question is, what do you do for a pump station in your room? I'm actually going to be sharing this in a video you guys are going to be seeing, in kind of like a room sharing tour slash setup. And I'm not sure when that video is going to go up. I don't know if it's going to be a maternity leave one or if it's going to be one that you guys see beforehand, but either way you will see it. But I basically have kind of like a Sterilite container that has an organizer in it as well, that I can bring from in my bedroom to out here. And I wanted to do that because my girls got into everything pump wise if I just left it out here last time. So for that reason, I want to try and save it from that this time around. So I got one that like locks the lid and stuff like that, and I'm just going to bring it back and forth, because honestly, I don't pump a ton in my room. I was really only doing that if we had company over, because I do not like to wear a cover. I will literally go find whatever room I can to not have to wear a cover and pump. I hate doing it. So for that reason, I'll just go to my room and I'll pump. But even for middle of the night sessions, I do typically come out here because I'll fall asleep if I sit in bed. And I'll just come out here, I'll sit on the couch, I'll put some TV on. It helps me get through those middle of the night pumps. But you guys will see it, and you'll see it more in detail. The people over on Instagram got a little bit of a sneak peek, but nonetheless, you guys are going to be able to see the full thing, what I have prepared, in a video pretty soon. And the next question is, do the girls get what's going on that Lexi is growing in your belly? I would say as much as they can given their ages. Sophie definitely understands more than Remy, but she's also older than her sister by a year and a half. But they both pretty much get it, like to the extent of their age. You know, Remy understands that apparently there's a baby in my belly. Her name's Lexi, and that's her sister. And she loves her. And Sophie understands that Lexi's growing in mommy's belly, and there's going to be a day where she comes out, and, you know, she kind of understands a little bit more of the details. And Remy's more like broad spectrum, but nonetheless, I think both of them understand that at least that it's their sister, and eventually she's going to come out and meet them. But yeah, and they love my belly. They love talking to her, kissing her goodbye, like everything. They're all about it. Although they're not super impressed by any movements. Like, I thought, given how much they do love my belly, they would love to feel her kick and stuff. And I'll put their hands on my belly and I'll think like they didn't feel it or something. I'm like, did you feel that? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what was it? And they're like, well, Lexi's moving around. And I'm like, that's not cool. And they're like, eh. Like, it's no big deal to them. Like, it's just, whatever. So that's the only thing that they don't really care about. But I think when she gets here, it's going to be like a new level of realization. Now, Sophie, I don't think will have much of a shock as Remy will, because Sophie's already said things like, you know, babies cry when they're hungry or they need stuff, and she kind of has a more realistic expectation. But I think Remy's gonna be like, whoa, this thing can scream and it's getting a lot of attention. And, you know, I think Remy's gonna be the one who's a little bit more confused by stuff when she actually gets here. And the next question is, how do you do toddler mommy role while in the first stages of postpartum? That is due to a huge contributing factor, which is my husband. Like I said, he takes time off of work. Every single delivery, he has done this. I think with every single delivery, it's been at least 2 weeks. And this time around, we're getting 2.5, which is nice. Even nicer than 2. And I'm really fortunate for that. When we get home from the hospital, he kind of takes over my household role, which is like taking care of things around the house, whether it's making dinner, washing dishes, doing laundry, stuff like that. He's going to be the one who helps get the girls ready in the morning, you know, might get them breakfast or whatever. And that way I'm really able to focus on doing what I need to do, whether it's nursing, pumping, however I'm breastfeeding at the moment, and taking care of Lexi and stuff like that, and allowing me to be able to do those things, because there's plenty of time for me to do it all. But the time he's off, he really does help me so I don't have to. I'm really grateful for that time we have for him, but I'm also grateful because these aren't things that I have to ask for from him. It's just things that he does, he wants to do. It's part of his personality. It's part of who he is as a dad and a husband. And that's also really nice because he's always encouraging me to leave stuff for him to do, even now being pregnant and stuff. But for me, I just, like, I'm the type where if I know something needs done, it's hard for me not to do it. But once I have major abdominal surgery, that's when I'm like, okay, yeah, you can definitely do the dishes for me. I'm okay. As far as like being a mom of toddlers and preschoolers on top of being a mom to a newborn, I'm just gonna do the best I can. Like, I'm not gonna have any expectations for myself. The next to last question is, what is the hardest thing about postpartum? In a more general sense, I guess I would say changes in general, because obviously having a baby changes your life in so many different ways. And it is really hard to adjust to all those changes at the same time. But more specifically, like if you're asking me personally, I would say, you know, your body after postpartum, taking care of it, learning what it means for you. You know, I feel like that's not something a lot of people talk about. You know, we really focus on nurturing baby in the 4th trimester and what it means for them and what postpartum might look like for, you know, the changes in your family and focusing on transitioning your other kids and, you know, stuff like that. But I think for me, the hardest part is always the body, like my postpartum body. And I just mean that in the sense of I feel like my postpartum body never matches how I actually feel. You know, like I feel like I'm more limited. And like I said, I've had C-sections, so this is going to be different for everybody. But, you know, I'm not able to do everything that I want to do, and I have to make sure that I'm staying on top of cleaning my incision, and if I don't poop for like 4 days, then we got to break out the stool softeners, and, you know, making sure that we keep the hemorrhoid cooling wipes on deck, and that we've got enough pads or disposable diapers, adult diapers, for myself, because there's just so much of that going on too. And your boobs are leaking, and they're sore, and they're engorged, and just everything. It's a lot. Like, there's so many different body changes happening at the same time. Never mind however you delivered, because that's a whole nother can of worms in and of itself. Like, your whole body is going through changes. You know, your hormone levels are coming back down to normal. You could have night sweats from that. You can it's like there's so many things that they don't tell you about. And then you go to your first 6-week, or no, 1 week if you're C-section, your 1 week appointment, and you're like, what is going on with me? Like, what happened? And they're like, oh no, that's completely normal. It's like, thanks for the heads up. Yeah, thanks for that. There's so much stuff that they don't tell you about, and you're like, what is going on with me? And it's hard to have all these changes going on with your own body, and knowing how to deal with them, and knowing how to take care of yourself, when most of us don't do that in the first place, on top of taking care of this human that you've either pushed out or had pulled out of you. And then on top of all that, doing whatever else is going on in life, you know, whether it's a relationship, jobs, you know, everything. So all of it is very complicated, but the body stuff is hard for me because, like I said, I'm not good at taking care of myself, and it forces you to in a way. But to me, personally, that's the hardest part about postpartum. And then the very last question is, if her name wasn't Lexi Dean, what would her name would have been? And we probably would have went with Avery. That's the middle name of the boy's name that we like, which was Mason Avery, but we never got to use. And that, we like the name Avery, obviously, but also it has that IE sound at the end, and that wasn't intentional with Sophie. We just like Sophie. And with Remy, we actually liked that name even before we got pregnant again, and we knew that's what our second daughter's name would be, and it had nothing to do with the ending of the IE sound. It was just like, those were the two names that we liked. But this time around, it's like they both have that ending sound, so I'm just gonna see this thing all the way through. And we really love Lexi, so I don't know why we wouldn't have chose it, but if not, we would have gone with Avery. For a fourth girl, it would have been Riley, but that name was kind of like last on the totem pole, I guess you could say. We really wanted to use Avery if we could, but we liked Lexi a bit more than Avery, so there you go. I'm not sure about a middle name. Honestly, the middle names are always kind of what catches us up because they're a little bit more difficult to go with the names. But yeah, that is everything for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, thanks for watching.